A mysterious distress call, the cold silence of space stretched across the galaxy. Stars blinked like tiny, distant eyes, watching everything and saying nothing. Somewhere near the edge of a forgotten star system, a small planet named Xeron 7 sent out a desperate message. The planet's people, the Kolari, were terrified. Their cities were burning, their skies filled with strange, unknown ships. No one knew where the attackers came from. No one had seen ships like these before. The Kolari's leader, High Elder Varnak, stood inside the main command center. His 4 eyes were wide with fear. Around him, officers shouted reports. Screens showed terrible images, fire, explosions, and black, twisted ships hovering in the sky like giant predators. "We must send the signal now," Varnak cried. A young officer pressed a button. A powerful distress call shot into the dark of space. A message in every known galactic language. "To any who can hear us, we are under attack. Unknown forces have invaded. Please help us. If you can, save our people. Coordinates attached. Beware. These enemies are not like anything we have faced before." The signal echoed through the galaxy. It reached hundreds of worlds, thousands of ships. But when alien empires received the message, they all said the same thing. Too dangerous. Not worth it. The Kolari were not part of any major alliance. They had no resources others wanted. No one cared enough to send help. The galaxy had seen too many such battles, too many lost planets. Another doomed world would not change much. Then, the message reached Earth Dot inside the Deathworlder command center. Deep beneath the surface of a fortified human colony, an alarm beeped. Commander Elena Cross, a tall woman with sharp eyes and a scar running down her cheek, looked up. From her desk, "What is it?" she asked. A young officer, Lieutenant Reed, pointed at the screen. "Ma'am, we just received a Class 1 distress call from a system near the outer rim. It's marked urgent." "Show me," Elena ordered. The message played on the screen. Shaky video showed the burning cities, the dark ships moving in the sky, and a terrified Kolari leader begging for help. At the end, the message added a warning. "Do not come here if you value your life." Elena watched the video in silence. Around her, other officers exchanged nervous glances. The ships in the recording were nothing anyone had seen before. And if other empires were ignoring the call, it meant it was very dangerous. But humans were different. Earth was known across the galaxy as a death world, a place so dangerous and wild that even its animals could kill most aliens. The species born there, called Deathworlders, were tougher, faster, and smarter than most. They survived things others wouldn't dare face. Commander Elena smiled. "Get me the fleet." An hour later, the Deathworlder fleet began to assemble. In orbit, massive warships built for harsh battles floated like metal beasts above Earth's atmosphere. Ships like the Vengeance, the Iron Fang, and the Stormbreaker powered up their weapons. Inside the command ship Resolute, Elena stood before her officers. "No one else answered this call," she said, "but we will. Because we're Deathworlders. Because we don't leave the weak to die alone." The crew cheered. Tactical Officer Reed grinned. "Only humans are crazy enough for this." "Damn." "Right," Elena replied. Across the galaxy, other species watched with disbelief. "They're sending ships?" asked a council member from the Ixari Empire. "Yes, sir." "The Deathworlders," his assistant answered. The council member shuddered. Fools or monsters. No one expected humans to survive whatever waited at Xeron 7, but the galaxy had learned to fear the Deathworlders' stubbornness. They didn't always win, but when they fought, entire worlds shook. Back on the Resolute, the final jump calculations were finished. The fleet hung at the edge of hyperspace lanes, ready for jump. Reed reported. Elena stared at the screen one last time, at the coordinates of the doomed planet. The message still played softly in the background. Please, help us. She took a deep breath. Jump. The stars outside stretched into streaks of light as the ships vanished into hyperspace. As they disappeared, no one knew what waited for them. The enemy was still unknown. The danger was real. But the Deathworlders were on their way. And what they would find, no one could have predicted. Deathworlders assemble. The Deathworlder fleet shot through hyperspace, their engines burning with light. Inside the command ship Resolute, Commander Elena Cross stood by the large viewing screen. She could see the stars moving like rivers of fire. The hum of the ship's power systems filled the air. Tactical Officer Reed entered the room, carrying a data tablet. Ma'am, fleet formation complete. All ships reporting ready. Elena nodded. Good. I want every weapon online. Shields at full strength the moment we drop out of hyperspace. Yes, Commander. Around them, dozens of crew members worked at their stations. The Deathworlder ships were not beautiful like other species' ships. They were made of thick, dark metal covered with weapon turrets and heavy armor. Their ships were built for survival, not for show. In one of the nearby hangars, soldiers prepared for battle. Tough men and women checked their weapons, adjusted armor plates, and loaded gear into drop pods. Each of them carried scars from a dozen battles. No one spoke of fear. These were Deathworlders. Fear wasn't part of them. Among them, Sergeant. Kane tightened his helmet and grinned. I heard nobody else answered that distress call, he said. A soldier next to him laughed. Typical. But we did. Damn right we did, Kane replied. And whatever's out there, it's going to regret seeing us. Back in the bridge, Elena studied the files about the Kolari. They were a peaceful race, known for farming and art. No military, no ships for war. Their world was rich in forests and lakes, with cities built into the cliffs. Why would anyone attack them? Reed, Elena asked, has any other empire responded to the distress call? Reed shook his head. No, ma'am. All channels are silent. Either they don't care, or they're too afraid. Elena frowned. That meant one thing. Whatever the enemy was, it scared even the strongest empires. And when the galaxy feared something, it was usually bad news for humans. But Deathworlders didn't turn away. She looked at the screen again. Time to arrival. 14 minutes. In another ship, the Iron Fang, Engineer Mara checked the reactor systems. The engines glowed a dangerous shade of blue, but they were holding steady. Her assistant, a young man named Jace, looked nervous. You think this is a suicide mission? Mara laughed, wiping oil from her hands. Kid, every mission's a suicide. Mission when you're human. The trick is to make the other side die first. Jace managed a weak smile. That was how Deathworlders survived. Stubbornness and bad attitude. In the observation chamber of the Galactic capital, several alien leaders watched the human fleet's progress on a large display. They are actually going, said a counselor. Of the Zevran Dominion. They're mad, another replied. No one answers a distress call like that. No one but Deathworlders. An old alien with silver eyes spoke softly. Fools they may be, but I would not bet against them. The room went silent. Everyone remembered the last time humans faced the unknown. Entire systems had been changed forever. The humans always brought chaos, sometimes victory, sometimes destruction, but they always left a mark. As the countdown reached 3 minutes, Commander Elena addressed her fleet. This enemy is unknown. We don't know what's waiting for us, she said through the con system. But those people asked for help, and we don't abandon those in need. Remember, she continued, her voice calm and steady, we are Deathworlders. We survive what others run from. We face what others fear, And today, we show the galaxy why. The fleet's response was a wave of cheers and battle cries. Checks rolled through the ships. Weapons locked and loaded. Shields powered up. Medical bays stood ready. Pilots tightened grips on their controls. On every screen, the same timer flashed. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 5 seconds. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 4 seconds. 0 hours, 0 minutes, and 3 seconds. Brace for re-entry, Reed called out. Stars twisted, and the ships burst out of hyperspace. What met them was a graveyard. Planet Xeron 7 hung in space, its surface scorched and dark. The orbital stations were in ruins. Broken ships floated like dead fish. Fires burned in the thin atmosphere. There were no signals, no voices, just cold silence. Elena narrowed her eyes. Where are the attackers? Suddenly, a lone signal appeared. A small wheat transmission from a damaged beacon. Help, please, anyone. The voice was barely a whisper. Reed looked uneasy. It's a trap. Probably, Elena agreed. But it's a trap for someone else, not us. Her voice was cold and fearless. Deploy recon squad. Find out what's hiding down there. And as the drop pods launched towards the ghostly planet, the Deathworlders prepared for whatever nightmare awaited them. Asterisk. The dead world V. Drop pods fell fast through the burned skies of Xeron 7. Flames licked around them as they cut through the thin atmosphere. Inside one of the pods, Sergeant Kane gripped the metal handles, his face calm while younger soldiers around him looked tense. Remember, Kane said, his voice steady, stick together, watch your corners, and if anything moves, you shoot it. The pod jolted as it landed, sending dust and ash into the air. The door burst open, and the Deathworlders moved out like shadows. The surface of the planet was nothing like the peaceful world it had once been. Cities were reduced to broken walls and blackened ground. No bodies, no movement. The wind howled. Through empty streets, carrying the smell of burnt stone, and Metal Dot Private Lennox looked around, his voice a whisper in the coms. Where is everybody? Sergeant Kane scanned the area through his visor. Stay sharp. This isn't right. Up above in orbit, aboard the Resolute, Commander Elena watched the live feeds from the recon teams. The images on her screen were haunting. The beautiful alien cities she had seen in the Kolari records were now lifeless ruins. Tactical Officer Reed frowned. There's no sign of the enemy. Not even wreckage from the battle. That's what worries me, Elena replied. If there had been a fight, there should have been bodies, debris, something. But the cities were empty, as if the people had simply vanished. Only the scorched ground and broken buildings remained. On the ground, Sergeant Kane's team moved deeper into the ruins. Every step crunched over broken stone. The sky above was a sickly red, with ash floating in the air like dead snowflakes. Private Lennox spotted something ahead. Sergeant, over there. They approached a half-collapsed building where a faint blinking light shone. It was a communication beacon, the one that had sent the distress call. It kept repeating the same message in a cracked, desperate voice. Help. Please, anyone. Kane knelt beside it. It's the source, he reported. But no one's here. He reached out to switch it off, and then he heard it, a faint scratching sound, like claws on stone. He stood up quickly. Weapons ready. The soldiers aimed their rifles at the darkness between the broken walls. Shadows moved, shapes too fast to see clearly. Something was out there. Command, we have movement, Kane said. The video feed flickered dot and then a scream. Private. Lennox vanished, pulled into the shadows. His rifle clattered to the ground. A squad opened fire, but their bullets hit nothing. Fall back. Kane shouted dot, but the shadows moved too quickly. One by one, soldiers disappeared into the dark. Aboard the Resolute, the feeds from the recon squad cut out. "We've lost contact," Reed said, his voice tight. Elena's eyes narrowed. "I want every scanner working. Now." Sensors stretched out over the planet, searching for life signs. At first, there was nothing. Then, a flicker. Dozens of strange signals appeared, moving rapidly beneath the surface of the planet. Whatever they weren't Kolari. And they were not. Human. Reed paled. "They were waiting for us." Elena nodded. "Call the fleet to battle stations and bring the ships closer. I want our weapons ready." Meanwhile, in one of the nearby ruined cities, a lone figure crawled from the wreckage. It was a Kolari survivor, a young female, her face dirty and her body trembling. She clutched a small data chip in her hand. Looking up at the Deathworlder drop pod wreckage nearby, she dragged herself toward it. "Blood stained the ground beneath her dot," she whispered. One word before collapsing. "Umbral?" Elena's screen lit up with a new feed as one of the patrol drones picked up the movement. "There's a survivor," Reed announced. Elena clenched her jaw. "Get her aboard." She had a bad feeling. Only one word echoed in her mind. UMBRL. The name was unknown, but it sent a chill down her spine. From the dark clouds above the planet, something massive began to move. The scanners picked it up as a large organic mass, bigger than a battleship. Elena stared at the readings. Reed spoke in a low voice. "Ma'am, it's coming." The Deathworlder fleet adjusted formation. Guns charged, shields raised. Every soldier aboard those ships knew that whatever they were about to face wasn't ordinary dot, and on the planet's surface, in the broken cities, the shadows moved again. This was no ordinary enemy. This was a predator the galaxy had long forgotten. Asterisk, the enemy revealed. The Deathworlder fleet hovered low in orbit, their massive ships forming a tight formation above Xeron 7. Inside the command ship Resolute, red warning lights flashed. The hum of the engines grew louder. Everyone could feel it. Something was coming. Commander Elena Cross stood at the center of the bridge, staring at the sensors. The readings were strange. Massive objects were moving beneath the planet's surface, shifting closer to the landing zones. Reed pointed to the display. "Ma'am, the life signs are rising. Hundreds of them. No, thousands." Elena's voice was calm but cold. "Sound battle stations. Charge all weapons." The crew hurried to their positions. Across the fleet, heavy cannons came online. Energy. Shields thickened, and fighter squadrons launched into the dark sky. Down on the planet, Sergeant Kane and the few remaining soldiers from the recon team huddled behind broken walls. Their faces were pale, sweat running down their dirt-streaked skin. Private Lennox was gone. The others were shaken, but Deathworlders didn't back down. Kane peered through the scope of his rifle. "Eyes up, people. Whatever's out there, it's not done yet." Then the ground trembled. A deep rumble, like a giant beast waking beneath the earth. Cracks split open in the streets. From those cracks, something crawled out. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a soldier. It was alive. The creature was massive, taller than a human dropship. Its skin was dark like shadow, covered in bone-like armor. Its eyes glowed a sickly green, and long, blade-like limbs dragged across the ground. Behind it, more shapes emerged. Hundreds of them, their forms twisted, some crawling, some walking, all made of bone and darkness. Private Voss whispered, "What in the hell are those?" Kane didn't answer. He raised his rifle and opened fire. The bullet struck the creature's chest, but barely slowed it down. It let out a low, hollow screech that rattled the bones of every soldier nearby. "Fall back to the drop pods," Kane shouted. The soldiers fired as they moved, but the enemy was fast. Too fast. One of the beasts leapt over a ruined wall and landed among the squad. A soldier screamed as the creature's claws tore through his armor like paper. Aboard the Resolute, Elena saw it all through the helmet cams. "Fire orbital support now." She ordered Dot in seconds. Beams of plasma and railgun rounds rained down from the sky, hitting the ground with explosions of fire and light. The creatures shrieked but kept moving. "They're tough," Reed said in disbelief. "They're umbral." Elena said quietly, "That's what the survivor called them." She looked at the data from the sensors. The umbral were unlike anything in the galactic records, not listed in any known species. It was like they had been erased from history.in. The skies, the Deathworlder fighter squadrons engaged smaller flying beasts that poured from the dark clouds. The battle grew chaotic. Human pilots were good, but the umbral creatures moved like living shadows, dodging and twisting in impossible ways. On the ground, Kane's team reached the drop pods. The young Kolari survivor, barely conscious, was already inside one of them. Kane dragged his last remaining soldier into a pod and sealed the door. "Get us off this rock," he shouted. The pods launched back into the sky as the umbral beasts clawed at the air behind them. Inside the Resolute, alarms blared. New sensor readings appeared. Reed's voice cracked. "Commander, one more thing. Above the planet." Elena turned to the view screen. From the black clouds above Xeron 7, a massive shape slowly emerged. It wasn't a ship in the normal sense. It was something organic, alive, a floating fortress of bone and muscle, larger than any battleship. Struggled to measure it. Elena's jaw tightened. "What in God's name?" Reed swallowed hard. "That's their command ship." The monstrous ship moved like a living creature, its body shifting and pulsing. Long tendrils reached out, and in its center, a giant, glowing eye-open dot, it looked. Directly at the Deathworlder fleet. Elena took a deep breath. "All ships, target that thing. Focus fire. We take it down now." The Deathworlder fleet opened fire, hundreds of plasma beams and kinetic rounds streaking toward the umbral ship. Explosions rocked its surface, tearing chunks from its flesh. But it didn't fall. Instead, it released a sound, a deep, inhuman roar that shook the entire system. The battle for Xeron 7 had begun. And for the first time in a long time, the Deathworlders faced something as ruthless as themselves. Asterisk. The turning point, the battle over Xeron 7, raged like a storm. Deathworlder ships fired everything they had. Bright plasma beams cut through the darkness, while railgun rounds slammed into the giant umbral ship. Explosions lit up the black sky. But the enemy vessel refused to fall. Inside the command ship Resolute, Commander Elena Cross gripped the edge of the command table. Sweat trickled down her face, but her voice stayed firm. "Status report?" she demanded. Reed wiped blood from a cut on his brow. "We've lost 3 ships. The Iron Fang is crippled. The umbral ship's armor regenerates too fast." "Then we stopped playing safe," Elena growled. "Ready the raise protocol." Everyone on the bridge froze. "Commander," Reed whispered. "That's forbidden." "Not today," Elena said. "Do it." Deep within the Resolute's armory, a secure vault opened. Inside lay a cluster of old, dangerous weapons. Crude but powerful. Nuclear warheads. Humans had long ago promised the galaxy they wouldn't use them in space battles. Too destructive. Too dangerous. But Deathworlders never made promises they couldn't break. Technicians armed the missiles. Red lights flashed. On the surface, Sergeant Kane's drop pod streaked through the atmosphere and slammed into the Resolute's landing bay. The doors opened, and Kane staggered out, covered in ash and blood. He carried the injured Kolari girl in his arms. "She has information," he gasped. "Get her to medbay." A medic rushed forward and took her. Khan turned to see the battle reports flashing on the screens. They're still coming? They don't stop. A Marine muttered. Kane wiped his face. Then neither do we. In space, the Umbral warship opened a massive fleshy maw in its side. From it, hundreds of smaller bioships launched, screaming through the void like dark, living torpedoes. They slammed into Deathworlder ships, claws tearing into hulls. Fighter squadrons fought back, weaving between the enemy in deadly dances. Human pilots risked close maneuvers, luring the Umbral ships into crossfire zones. Squad Delta, flank. Left, don't give them a chance to regroup, barked one pilot. Explosions filled the air. The Deathworlders fought like madmen, refusing to retreat. Back on the Resolute, Reed spoke quickly. Missiles are armed, Commander. But to hit the Umbral ship's core, we need to get close. How close? Elena asked. Inside their atmosphere. A death sentence. Elena didn't hesitate. I'll take the Resolute myself. Reed stepped forward. I'll go. No, Elena said. You keep the fleet alive. That's an order. The crew looked at her in shock, but Deathworlders followed their leaders into hell. This was no different. Elena turned toward the comm system. All ships, this is Commander Cross. I'm taking the Resolute into the heart of that beast. Keep those sky leeches off me. Cheers erupted over the comms. Even in the darkest hours, Deathworlders never lacked courage. The Resolute broke formation and charged directly at the monstrous Umbral ship. Its tendrils lashed out, but Deathworlder. Fighters intercepted them. Elena guided the ship through the burning battlefield. Explosions rocked the hull, but the Resolute pushed forward, engines roaring. Bring us to point-blank range, she ordered. Meanwhile, in medbay, the young Kolari survivor woke, her voice weak. You can't kill it. Unless you burn. The core. The doctor leaned in. Where's the core? She pointed at the giant glowing eye at the center of the Umbral ship. Shoot it there, she whispered. The message was sent to Elena. She smiled grimly. You heard her. The Resolute burst through a curtain of black mist, heading straight for the eye. Now! Elena shouted. The nuclear missiles launched, streaking through space. The Umbral ship tried to close its tendrils around them, but the fighters and heavy guns kept it pinned. The missiles hit the eye. A blinding flash of light swallowed everything. The shockwave blasted the nearby ships backward. Silence followed. Slowly, the dust cleared. Where the Umbral ship had been. There was now only burning debris. Reed's voice came through the static. Target destroyed. Commander, status? On the Resolute's cracked bridge, Elena coughed, but smiled. We're alive. The remaining Deathworlder ships cheered. The Umbral fleet, leaderless, scattered. Deathworlder squadrons hunted them down like wolves. Kane entered the bridge, bloodied and grinning. Did we win? Elena nodded. We turned the tide. But deep in the remains of the enemy ship, strange signals still flickered, because Deathworlders always win battles. But wars. Wars are another story. Asterisk the aftermath and warning to the galaxy. Wreckage of the Umbral ship drifted in orbit like pieces of a nightmare. Fires burned in the vacuum. Debris floated aimlessly, and no signs of the living beasts remained. The Deathworlder fleet hung silently around the ruined planet. The battle was over. Inside the Resolute, smoke curled from broken panels. Sparks popped in the air. Medical teams rushed through the damaged corridors, carrying wounded soldiers to medbays. But even with the injuries and losses, there was something in the air. Now. Victory. Commander Elena Cross stood at the shattered bridge window. Her face was bruised, and her uniform torn, but her eyes were sharp as ever. She stared at the remains of the Umbral ship. Tactical Officer Reed approached. His arm was in a sling, but he was still on duty. Fleet reports minimal survivors from Xeron 7, he said quietly. We managed to recover a few hundred Kolari. Most of the planet's gone. Elena took a breath. And the enemy? Scattered. Some fled into deep space. Others we're tracking. There was a silence between them. The cost had been high, and yet it could have been worse. In Medbay, the young Kolari survivor lay on a bed, weak but alive. Sergeant Kane sat beside her, a half-smile on his face. You did good, kid, he said. Helped save more lives than you'll ever know. She gave a tired nod, gripping the small data chip she'd carried through the nightmare. I have. Something you need to see, she whispered. Kane leaned in as she activated the chip. A projection appeared in the air. Old, corrupted records showing other planets, other battles. Worlds burned, empires erased. The Umbral had done this before. They sleep, the girl said softly. For centuries. Then they wake and hunt. Kane's grin faded. How many more are out there? He asked. She only looked away. Back on the bridge, a council of Deathworlder captains gathered through hologram links. We need to warn the galaxy. One captain said. Another scoffed. You think they'll listen to us now? They didn't when the call first came. They will this time, Elena replied. She ordered a broadcast. Across the galaxy, screens flickered to life. In every major empire, military outpost, and trade station, a human face appeared. Commander Elena Cross. Her voice was steady, her face marked by battle. To all listening, she began, this is Commander Cross of the Deathworlder fleet. Xeron 7 has fallen. The attackers were not pirates, not raiders. They were Umbral, creatures older than most of your histories. They erased civilizations before ours began. She paused, her gaze hard. We defeated one of them today. But there are more. Somewhere in the dark, they sleep. And one day, they'll wake again. Around the galaxy, leaders watched in silence. Fear crept into the hearts of even the most powerful. Next time, Elena continued, when a distress call comes, you answer it. Or the next world they consume might be yours. The broadcast ended. Inside the observation chamber of the Galactic capital, the Council of Nine sat in silence. The elder Zevran counselor spoke at last. They faced the Umbral and survived. Another counselor whispered, and if the Deathworlders had fallen, the galaxy would already be burning. The elder nodded. We made a mistake, one we may not survive next time. Back aboard the Resolute, Reed approached Elena. You think they'll believe us? He asked. No, she replied. But they'll remember the warning. Kane entered the bridge, carrying the recovered data chip. We've got old records. Maps, locations, possible hiding spots. Looks like the Umbral left signs if you know where to look. Elana's lips curved into a grim smile. Good, because we're not done yet. She turned to the crew. Get some rest. Repair the ships. And then we hunt. The Deathworlders, battered and bloodied, let out tired but fierce cheers. Outside. As the fleet moved away from Xeron 7's ruined orbit, the burned planet slowly turned. In the deep shadows of a distant crater, something pulsed. A faint, sickly green light. A single Umbral eye. Still watching. Still waiting. The war was far from over. Asterisk. Shadows in the dark far away from Xeron 7. In a cold, empty system with no name. Something ancient stirred. Inside a dead asteroid field. A small, long-forgotten station, powered up for the first time in centuries. Dust-covered consoles flickered, showing symbols not seen since before the founding of most galactic empires. A pale, twisted figure stood alone in the control room. Its skin stretched tight over bone, and its eyes glowed a cold, hungry green. It watched the readings on the screen. A signal from Xeron 7. The death of one of their kind. The creature pressed a clawed hand to a control panel. They woke early. It hissed. More shapes stepped out of the shadows behind it. Tall, thin, ancient beings, long hidden in the forgotten corners of the galaxy. One by one, the symbols on the consoles turned red. Systems long buried began to hum with life. In the darkness, a voice spoke. Release the sleepers. Back on Earth, deep beneath the old mountain ranges, the Deathworlder High Command gathered. It was a room filled with generals, admirals, and old soldiers who had survived wars no one else dared speak of. At the front, Commander Elena Cross stood with a hollow look in her eyes. The victory at Xeron 7 was already becoming old news. Rumors of other sightings had started. Disappearances in remote colonies. Entire mining ships vanishing in the void. Faint messages caught by long-range scanners. Whispers of a shadow moving between stars. Tactical Officer Reed entered the room with a data pad. His face was pale. You need to see this, he said. Elena took the device. It showed sensor reports from 3 different systems, each one marked with the same strange readings they'd seen before the Xeron 7 attack. Unknown energy patterns. Organic ship traces. Ships gone missing. 3 in 1 week? Elena muttered. Reed nodded. And this time, no survivors. A long silence followed. General Harlan, the oldest Deathworlder in the room, leaned forward. His voice was like old stone. I've seen this before. Everyone turned. Harlan's face was lined with age and battle scars. His eyes carried the weight of too many wars. Back in my youth, Harlan said, there were stories. Ships vanishing. Whole systems erased from the maps. Everyone blamed pirates, rogue AIs, black holes. But those of us who fought in the dark, we knew better. He pointed at the reports. It's them. The real enemy, the old ones, the Umbral aren't a fleet. They're a warning. Elena felt a cold chill. Then who are they warning us about? The room fell silent. Somewhere in deep space, inside a derelict alien ruin on a lost planet, 2 scavengers crept through dark tunnels. Their flashlights barely cut through the thick dust. I told you this was a bad idea, one muttered. Relax, the other whispered. There's no one here. They turned a corner and froze. Massive chambers stretched before them, filled with stone pods. Thousands of them, each one sealed. Each one marked with an ancient symbol, a single vertical eye. One of the scavengers reached out to touch a pod. The moment his fingers brushed the surface, the pod's lights flickered on. A long, cold sound filled the air. His SSSSSS. The scavenger stepped back. Let's go, now. But it was too late. The pod opened. Inside, a figure lay still for a moment. Then its eyes snapped open. Green, cold, ancient. And hungry. On Earth, alarms blared across the Deathworlder command center. A priority signal came through from a distant research post near the edge of known space. A terrified voice crackled over the speaker. This is Outpost 9. They're here. The shadows. They're coming through the walls. We... Static swallowed the message. Then silence. Elena looked at the map. Dozens of systems blinked red. How many ships do we have ready? She asked. Not enough. Reed replied. Then we fight with what we've got. In the dark corners of the galaxy, things long buried began to wake. Ancient war machines, dead cities, beasts from forgotten times. The Deathworlders had won a battle, but the real war had only just begun. Asterisk.